Imagine this. 18,000 fans packed into an arena, screaming, crying, waiting for Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll. The music is loud, the lights are dazzling, and the energy is electric. But then, something no one expected happens. Elvis stops the entire concert. He lays down his microphone, looks into the crowd, and walks off the set list. Why? Because of a 7-year-old boy. A boy who had only hours left to live. And what happened next would bring 18,000 people to tears. The date was September 11th, 1975. The arena was bursting with live 18,000 fans, crammed shoulder to shoulder, banners waving, camera flashes sparkling like stars. The king was in the building. Elvis Presley, dressed in his iconic white jumpsuit, with golden rhinestones, had just stepped onto the stage. The energy surged like a tidal wave. He started with C.C. Rider, his voice rich, commanding, electrifying. The crowd was a storm of applause and screams, their emotions pouring out as they watched their idol perform. Women fainted, men cheered, and for those few minutes, the world outside didn't exist. But amid the chaos of adoration, one story unfolded. Quietly in the crowd, a desperate mother had brought her son, a frail 7-year-old boy named Danny. Danny had been battling a terminal illness, and the doctors had told her he didn't have long. His last wish? To see Elvis Presley perform live. Mother had written letters, pleaded with managers, and fought for this one chance. And somehow, miraculously, Danny got a front row seat that night. The boy, weak and pale, sat clutching his mother's hand as Elvis performed. At first, Elvis didn't notice. But midway through his set, as he scanned the audience, his eyes fell on the child. For a moment, Elvis's singing faltered. Something in the boy's small frame, the oxygen tube near his face, and the hope shining in his tired eyes stopped the king in his tracks. He sang the last note, then stood still. The band looked at him, confused. Elvis lowered his microphone slowly and signaled them to stop. The music faded into silence. The crowd, puzzled, began to murmur. And then Elvis Presley, the most famous performer on earth, stepped off his stage and into history. The entire arena fell silent as Elvis left the microphone behind. He began walking toward the front row, his rhinestones catching the light with each step. Fans gasped, unsure what was happening. Security looked panicked, but Elvis waved them off. He crouched down in front of the boy. Danny's eyes lit up, his tiny chest heaving with excitement. Elvis reached out, placing a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. The mother, overwhelmed, whispered, "This is his last wish." Tears streamed down her face as she clutched her son. Elvis looked at her, then at Danny, and everything else. 18,000 fans, the blinding lights, the pressure of fame vanished. All that remained was a dying boy and a man with the power to give him a moment of eternity. Without a word, Elvis scooped Danny into his arms. The crowd gasped and erupted into applause and tears. Cameras flashed wildly, but Elvis wasn't performing for them anymore. He held Danny close and carried him back to the stage. The band didn't know what to do, so they stayed still. Elvis walked to the center, holding Danny against his chest, and whispered into the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, this little boy is the bravest fan I've ever met." The arena broke down. Men wiped their eyes. Women sobbed. Strangers hugged each other in the stands. Then Elvis did something even more unimaginable. He began to sing not to the crowd, but directly to Danny. The song Elvis chose was "Can't Help Falling in Love." His voice trembled at first, raw with emotion, but then it soared, filling the arena with warmth. He sang every word while gazing into Danny's eyes, as if no one else existed. Danny's lips moved, trying to sing along, though his voice was barely audible. Elvis tightened his embrace, resting the microphone so the boy's tiny voice could be heard with his own. The duet of legend and child echoed through the stadium, a haunting and beautiful harmony that no one would ever forget. The audience was stunned. Some covered their mouths with shaking hands. Others raised their lighters, the tiny flames flickering like stars in the darkened arena. 18,000 people, who had come for a show, now found themselves witnesses to a sacred moment. When Elvis reached the final note, his voice cracked, but he finished strong. The boy looked up at him, a weak smile stretching across his tired face. Elvis kissed Danny's forehead and whispered, "You're my hero tonight." The crowd erupted, but it wasn't cheers anymore. It was sobs, applause through tears, a roar of love directed not just at Elvis, but at a boy who embodied courage in its purest form. Elvis turned back to the audience, his eyes wet. "This is what matters," he said softly. "Not the fame, not the money, but love." And with that, he carried Danny off stage. Backstage, Elvis spent the rest of the concert with Danny. He sang softly to him, spoke to his mother, and gave them everything he could: autographs, photos, and above all, time. The rest of the band improvised instrumentals for the audience. But no one in that arena felt cheated. They knew they had seen something bigger than music. Word of the moment spread quickly. Newspapers called it the night the king stopped for a child. Fans wrote about it for decades, remembering not the set list, but the silence, the tears, and the love that filled the arena. Danny passed away not long after that night. But his mother later said he died smiling, holding on to the memory that his hero had sung to him and made him the center of the world. For Elvis, the night marked a turning point. He was no longer just an entertainer. He was a man who understood the power of kindness, of humanity, even in the middle of a world that demanded constant spectacle. And for the 18,000 who witnessed it, the story became a memory that lived longer than any chart-topping song. That night, Elvis proved that greatness isn't about the spotlight. It's about using it to bring light to someone else's life. He stopped everything for one child, and in doing so, touched 18,000 hearts at once. If you believe Elvis will always be more than just the king, share this story and let the world remember the love behind the legend.